And pictures on your screen show how windows were smashed at JD Vance's residence. JD Vance's home has been attacked with reports of windows being smashed as Secret Service has swarmed the area. The United States Vice President's property was damaged in the early hours, and the police have said that they have taken a person into custody, is what the foreign media reports have been claiming. It is unclear where JD Vance was at the time of the attack. The politician was, however, in Florida last Friday meeting with Donald Trump. That's his latest update. We also learned that JD Vance had spent a day with Trump, and this was just yesterday, but he did not join the president and the other top administration's officials to watch the attack on Venezuela that was carried out. We now learn that fresh visuals of his home being attacked has now surfaced. This is the residence of JD Vance in Ohio, which has been attacked by miscreants. One person has been arrested, is what we learn. And reports are now claiming that there are JD Vance's residence in Ohio. Ohio has been attacked, and we now learn that one suspect has been arrested by the agencies. There were several windows that had been smashed. The residence had been attacked. JD Vance, we learn, according to reports, was not present at the time of the attack in his residence. But the visuals show how the window panes were smashed and the house had been attacked. This is his residence. Secret Service have rushed to the scene. The Secret Service agents and police officers have swarmed the residence of United States Vice President JD Vance in early hours of Monday morning. It is unclear whether JD Vance was at the residence at the time of the attack or not. These are the initial details that we are picking up. We also learn that the suspect in the case has now been arrested after he fired shots on JD Vance's residence. And details are just coming in how Secret Service agents are still at the spot, and there is probe underway to find out the details on who was behind the attack that took place. The police has launched an investigation following an alleged incident at the home of United States President JD Vance. Several windows were found to be broken, and officers were spotted searching the area around his house early this morning. The United States Secret Service had called for police at 12:15 a.m. is what we learn, after seeing someone running eastbound, is what the reports have claimed. Abhishek, my colleague, is joining me on the broadcast. Abhishek, yes, what are the details that we are picking up?
Well, so we have a picture of a window pane smashed at the residence of Vice President JD Vance. Now, it seems like this has happened in the evening. We do not know whether at that very moment the U.S. Vice President was at home or not. Those details are still awaited, but this seems clearly to be a case of somebody attempting to target the Vice President or send a message, possibly a political message, because you don't harm the U.S. Vice President with stones. You only try to sort of send a message that he is not liked. This could be possibly a reaction to American action in Venezuela. And because remember, the Democrats have not really liked it. Even within the United States, there is a lot of consternation at the fact that a sovereign country's president has been picked up, and there is not enough international law backing. Everybody in the United States perhaps knows that. We have seen muted, opposition coming in. Because ultimately the American deep state controls those reactions. But even within that framework, we have seen an element of discomfiture. So maybe some of it getting reflected in this stone pelting and window smashing of the Vice President's residence in the United States. More details are awaited. As they come, we'll get back to you. But these pictures clearly suggesting that it's not all hunky-dory, and while the Trump administration is getting a lot of credit from the mega constituency on the daredevilry in terms of executing the abduction of President Maduro from Caracas, but the fact remains it's an abduction, and in whatever other name. So obviously this seems like more a political statement being made by smashing the windows of the residence of U.S. Vice President
Right,
JD
Abhishek.
Vance.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Abhishek, for getting us those details. Latest visuals coming in from Ohio, where JD Vance's residence has been attacked by miscreants, is what Abhishek was telling us. The Secret Service agents have rushed to the spot, and they're currently investigating around who could be the possible people around this attack. The attack was so severe, ladies and gentlemen. As you see on your screens, the window panes have been smashed, the window glasses have been broken, and we are continuing to stay on that story, but for now it's time for us to slip into a short break. After the break, getting you more evidence that prove how Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid have been planning and orchestrating the 2020 Delhi riots, not just in the year 2020, but also from 2019.
दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर, माँ की मुस्कुराहट और खाने की सुगंध। MDH गरम मसाला,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात।
वाओ मम्मा, क्या स्वाद है?
अरे मेरे राजा,
मसाला।
5, 4, 3. S200 motors. Plus 20 seconds. Lift off normal. L40 stages are ignited. Plus 5 seconds. Plus 20 seconds. First stage performance normal. L40 stages thrust cut off. Plus 5 seconds.
ऑटो ट्रैकिंग।
PP driver tracking.
PSLV 661 का सफलतापूर्ण उत्थापन
Auto tracking.
प्रथम प्रमोचन मंच से
Plus 15
अपने उद्दिष्ट कक्षा की ओर अपना सफर
First
जारी
stage
कर चुका है।
performance normal.
There's a magnificent
2, 1, 0.
All L40 engines generating nominal thrust. S139 motor ignited. First stage performance normal.
I can monitor through module parameters, alert you, and perform life support operations.
Tukre gang key conspirators will continue to stay in jail. Supreme Court rejects bail for Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid. Supreme Court makes a strong observation, rules that Imam and Khalid are on a different footing than other accused. The government's courtroom warrior, the lawyer who led the case in the Delhi High Court and Supreme Court, S.V. Raju, speaks to Republic TV. ASG S.V. Raju speaks about how Tukre gang orchestrated the Delhi riot, says the gang wanted regime change.
हम कहना चाहेंगे 2 लोगों को जो बेल नहीं दी गई है उसके लिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट का शुक्रिया अदा करना चाहेंगे, लेकिन 5 लोगों को जो बेल दी गई है ये दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है, बेल नहीं देनी चाहिए। इनको बेल देने का मतलब है कि हम सनातनियों को फांसी देने का काम किया जा रहा है, तो जो कि नहीं होना चाहिए।
Victim families question bail to 5 other accused, demand Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam should be hanged.
And after this, they wanted to make me happy, basically. He wanted to
Modi's a very good man.
Yes.
He's a good guy. He knew I was not happy, and it was important to make me happy. They do trade, and we can raise tariffs on them very quickly, and it would be very bad for them.
Donald Trump threatens India to raise tariffs if India doesn't stop buying Russian oil. Says it's necessary to make him happy. Starting this edition with some breaking news now coming in from US, where the Vice President JD Vance's home has been attacked. Several windows have been smashed. In fact, one person is in custody and an investigation is underway following an incident at the Ohio residence of Vice President JD Vance. In fact, as we speak, the Secret Service is at the spot. Some officials indicating that the Vance family was not at home at the time of the incident, and the authorities do not believe that the person entered the Vice President's home. Now, these images that you see on your screens coming in from local news outlets have indicated the damage to the windows of the residence. But at this stage, it's still unclear as to what exactly occurred. The last public visit that was made, or a public appearance that was made, was when the operation was carried out by the U.S. Armed Forces in Venezuela, when the Secret Service agents immediately thereafter had rushed to his spot. In fact, JD Vance was last seen with President Trump in Florida. That was on last Friday, where he met the president. He spent the entire day with the president and at the president's West Palm Beach residence to discuss the strikes on Venezuela and the operation to remove Nicolas Maduro. But it turns out that the vice president actually did not join the president and other administrative officials at Mar-a-Lago to watch it being carried out. In fact, the vice president was watching this entire operation through a secure video conference. Now, immediately thereafter is when vice president's residence was also attacked. As we speak, we are given to understand a suspect has already been taken into custody. And Vance's office has now indicated that the investigation is underway. They're not very clear at this point in time whether they've been able to identify who the suspect is and, more importantly, what was the objective here. Let me also bring in my colleague from the newsroom in a short while from now. Before that, General K.K. Sinha is joining us on this broadcast. General K.K. Sinha, there are two factions there currently in America, those who haven't really supported the administration, the Trump administration's decision to take out Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela, and saying that this is the high-handedness of the Republicans, which is out in display.
Good evening, Jayant. We have heard that early in the morning, U.S. Vice President JD Vance's house at Cincinnati was, attacked. The windows was, basically broken in that, and it was shattered. The Secret Service has responded on that, and they have, they apprehended one person and taken him into custody. They are actually carrying out the investigation. They must have got the detail by now, but it is not out. And no one was there. And this is a big, it is a 2.3 acres.
General K.K. Sinha, I'm just sorry to interrupt here, because we're getting in the first-hand information now directly from US, where a consulting editor, Saurabh Shukla, is joining us. Saurabh, the report essentially suggesting that some shots were fired, windows have been damaged, and the Vance family was not present when the firing actually took place. Any more details that you're picking up?
Yes, absolutely. It's a serious incident that has been reported from Vice President JD Vance's home in Cincinnati in the U.S. And in fact, this was around 12:15 in the night when it was reported, and the police, the local police there, and the Secret Service agents, which guards the president and the vice president in the U.S., they responded to this incident, and this has also been captured by the local TV cameras, where there is a damage to the windows of the home. I've just spoken to, a source here at the White House as well. They're still trying to ascertain what really happened. But it's confirmed that the Vice President and his family are unharmed. And obviously, they're taking this seriously, given the situation, the security situation as such. You know that there has been a operation by the U.S. in Venezuela, and that's the reason why the security, in fact, has been beefed up. In fact, even the White House perimeter security has been beefed up because of that. But with this incident coming up, obviously, there will be extra deployment as well. This is a developing story, and I want to tell our viewers who are hearing and watching us that this is a serious but a developing story, and the Vice President and his family are unharmed. And one person has also been detained from the location. Shravan.
Saurabh, any more details with regards to the suspect? Because some reports suggest that the Secret Service was able to perhaps intercept and they've got a preliminary information about the motive behind the firing. Any more details are you picking up? Have they released the picture of the suspect, and was there at all he was part of a larger group?
We are waiting for a briefing from the local authorities, Shravan, and I will not like to hazard a guess there, and obviously being a responsible news network.
Saurabh, I'm just sorry, we are just cutting across to another breaking news now coming in. These are the first set of visuals coming in of Maduro's movement. He's likely he's being moved from the detention center to the court, where he's going to be presented before the court later today. In fact, he was kept at a detention center in New York, is what we are being told. The trial is going to begin later today. These images now coming in from outside the Federal Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. Interestingly, Saurabh, the first day when the images actually came in of Nicolas Maduro reaching New York, there was an open van, and many would say that the Trump administration was literally parading the Venezuelan president on the streets of New York.
I saw some of those visuals as well, and, I was a bit surprised at how that happened. But obviously, when he goes for the court appearance today, you will see a lot more security presence, and obviously, he's a high-value, prisoner, so to say, and will get a lot of security. But yes, because of his court presence, New York, in fact, Manhattan, where he'll be produced before a judge today, has a much higher security presence. And obviously, this is I would say that the court proceeding, which has been eagerly watched, Shravan. And I can also tell you that, as I was mentioning earlier, that because of this, not only in New York, but in Washington, D.C. as well, the security has been beefed up around the White House as well, where usually people can be allowed to go to a certain point. They have set up extra Secret Service, has set up extra perimeter control to make sure that there is no untoward incident at all. So that's the situation from the ground as it exists, Shravan.
Saurabh, just to take our viewers through some of the details coming in with regards to what is essentially expected. In the court, in fact, you've had Attorney General Pam putting out details of the indictment that has taken place and the way it has changed. 2020, when we saw the first set of indictment really coming in, and at least on 5 counts he has been charged. It turns out that his wife too has now been indicted. What is the process that is going to be followed now, given the fact that you've already had the first indication really coming in from the Trump administration that full wrath of the American justice would be seen in the days to come?
Well, as you have yourself said, that there was a whole, the indictment which has happened, and Pam Bondi is the key person who's handling this case personally, we'll make sure that it's a watertight case, because this is, as I said, is being a very high-profile case, and it also is linked to the overall charges that have been brought out against Nicolas Maduro. As you know, that he had a $50 million bounty now on his head, and obviously, U.S. side, after taking this extreme measure of getting him, in fact, extracting him out of Venezuela in a special, forces operation, will want to make sure that it has a proper case against him. That's the reason why, even in this operation, you had the DOJ agents who were embedded with the special forces team to make sure that all legal procedures were taken into consideration. Because courts here, as you know, he will appear before the U.S. District Judge, Justice Hellerstein in Manhattan, usually make sure that this is an independent process, and they want to make sure that all the procedures according to law have been undertaken. And that is the first step when they usually bring a suspect before them. So that's the reason the DOJ, which is making sure that there is a watertight case against Maduro, and that's what you will see when this indictment, happens today. And the main charges is that he was accused of running an not only illegitimate corrupt government, but largely it was being funded through a drug operation that flooded the U.S. and with his cocaine narco-terrorism. That's what is expected to come out. The details we'll have to wait and see when this arraignment happens today in the Manhattan court, Chavan.
Saurabh, I'll request you just stay with us as we take our viewers through the latest images now coming in from the Metropolitan Detention Center. Now, there is, as Saurabh, our chief consulting editor, was pointing out, undoubtedly Nicolas Maduro happens to be a high-value target here. There is a growing opposition also within the United States of America with regards to the manner in which a sitting president was taken out, while President Trump has said that this is an act to protect America from what they've been calling that to prevent America from falling in the abyss of drug trafficking. And in fact, in the 2020 indictment, President Nicolas Maduro has been charged of drug trafficking, and more importantly, he has been dubbed as a drug criminal. In fact, the first set of images, if I'm not wrong, this is the first image of Maduro coming out, being taken out of the vehicle there, and in all likelihood, he would be presented before the court today. That will be the first appearance. Of course, the first set of images came in was the moment the team, in fact, the Delta Force, landed in New York. The image was of Maduro in his night suit. In fact, this operation that has been carried out by the Delta Force in Caracas, the capital city, where we are given to understand a swift military operation that was carried out to take out Maduro from Caracas, and President Trump essentially declaring that the United States of America would be running Venezuela till the time a government is in place. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez basically takes over as the interim president here. But there is also growing opposition in Venezuela, particularly in the manner this was essentially done, while there is also a section in Venezuela celebrating what they're calling the end of the dictatorship, starting with Hugo Chavez and, of course, thereafter his protege, that is Nicolas Maduro, who's now been taken out, and he is going to face the trial in the United States of America. But
Chinese origin air batteries, so all that had to be made sure, and that the U.S. Special Forces, they wanted to make sure that there were no casualties of the forces which went inside the compound of Mr. Maduro. So it was purely in security terms, the newcomer security as well. That it was a very, very difficult operation. And that's the reason why only a handful within the administration, they were in the loop. If you see those images that were released as well, there were only few people inside that room. It was completely need to know. And in fact, there was a element of surprise as well, because just ahead of that operation, President Trump was having a dinner at Mar-a-Lago, where he then, slipped out of that dinner and went to that makeshift control room that was set up, where they were watching from live cameras as this operations unfolded. So clearly they wanted to make sure that there was no leak. That was one. Secondly, in the past as well, for national security purposes, all over these kind of operations have happened, where the opposition and the key lawmakers were informed later. In terms of opposition, obviously, the Democratic Party will make a, case out of this. But the fact remains that this bounty that was there on Mr. Maduro's head stayed on during the regime of Joe Biden as well, who was a Democratic president. So the U.S. has consistently maintained this, and when the explanation that has come out that this country is in Western Hemisphere, which poses a direct threat to the security of the U.S., and obviously the U.S. nationals were getting killed because of the narco trafficking ring that he was running. In some ways, I would say by bringing him to justice, what the U.S. has also done, because this drug trafficking that was happening was not only happening in the U.S., but to many other countries across the globe. So I think, in some ways, a lot of people are hailing. In fact, here, I was talking to some of the Venezuelan community members who are here in the U.S. They're very happy because not only was he running the country with an iron hand, but a lot of excesses that had happened as well. So that's the other side of the story. But obviously, we'll have to wait and watch what the court says now, because this is the first step when he's taken to a Manhattan court, where the judge will decide whether he can be tried in the U.S. And DOJ sources are telling me that they have a watertight case, given the gravity of the crime that Mr. Maduro has committed. Shaman.
One big concern would also be what really happens and what's the motive behind it. While in the press conference that took place at the tea room in Mar-a-Lago, you've essentially seen President Trump saying that this was with the intention of just drug trafficking, to put an end to drug trafficking. But perhaps addressing the elephant in the room here, that's the Venezuelan oil. And Saurabh, as we speak, latest images now coming in of Maduro being taken out. He's being put in a chopper as we speak right now. Not very sure. Is it because to avoid perhaps taking him through the busy areas of New York, or it's going to be a Monday morning, so to avoid the busy areas from Brooklyn, and as he's taken out, I'm also going to speak over these images now coming in. So these are the first set of images now in prison clothes of Maduro being taken inside a chopper. Saurabh.
Yeah, absolutely. There are both the concerns. One, obviously, the security concern is there, and certainly if you know that they want to make sure that he's a high-value prisoner, and obviously he's being brought for his first court appearance, they want to make sure that all the security protocols are in place. And certainly, it's a busy Monday morning for Manhattan, and obviously Manhattan has a busy schedule when it comes to traffic. So both the considerations must have been there. But as I was speaking earlier, Shavan, that yes, there is, and President Trump himself said that the whole idea why the U.S. side is now actively helping the vice president in Venezuela, the current vice president who's now taken over as the acting president, is they don't want any chaos to happen. And Venezuela certainly has the highest, reserves of any country across the globe. And, much of this oil was actually going to China since they were sanctioned on Venezuela. So certainly they want to make sure that not only that there is no resultant chaos there in Venezuela post-Maduro, but also the global oil supply chain, that's not disrupted. That's the reason why this will be a combination where in the next few days you will see some agreement coming up with the government there to make sure that the U.S. oil companies can go in and they can sidestep the sanctions now that Nicolas Maduro has gone. So certainly this is obviously, as I call it, a strategic move. They got somebody who was on a wanted list of the U.S. Because of the narco-terrorism charges, but also certainly there is a strategic interest of ensuring that Venezuela oil do not actually.
Well, Chief Consulting Editor Saurabh Shukla taking us through the developments taking place in New York. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to appear in New York court in a short while from now.
MDH की हल्दी मिर्ची धनिया करे कमाल, ये रंग दे, ये खुशबू दे, ये तीखा, ये कम पड़े, क्या निराला MDH मसाला। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे, केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
Pure Shahi Paneer Masala. Delicious, healthy, every day.
These are not media trials. These are strong campaign-based issues. Journalism which has brought the truth out. The only thing that sustains is public interest. Public interest is national interest. What happens when AI comes in a big way? How many jobs does it create? And how many jobs does it take away?
When we look out at the world, Samir, we look for partners. We don't look for.
ये है सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिप जल जीरा मसाला। सिप सिप जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप।
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ
8 मिनट में तैयार।
क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा हार्डकोर मसाला।
5, 4, 3 S200 motors.
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद ये ही तो है इसकी खास बात।
वाओ मामा क्या स्वाद है।
अरे मेरी राजा
सबका राजा हार्डकोर मसाला। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे, केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
ये है सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिप जल जीरा मसाला। सिप सिप जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप।
When we look out at the world, Samir, we look for partners. We don't look for preachers. Engaging America has become more complicated. You all know why. Having a neighbor that is an epicenter of global terrorism.
India in 2025 saw many international diplomatic moments of India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who literally turned international politics and the diplomacy that comes with it into an art of savage roasts, from jeering comments on Pakistan.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Monday edition of 6 Stories at 6 with me, Oyana Mitra. Over the next half an hour, I'll take you through those 6 stories that have dominated the headlines today. So here we go. Up first, a story that your channel, Republic TV, has closely tracked over the years. The Supreme Court today has rejected the bail plea of terrorists Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. What is it that the top court has observed in the Delhi riots conspiracy case? We'll tell you all about that. Second, deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is set to make his first court appearance in New York City. He's charged with narco-terrorism. What lies next for him? Third, the SRKKK controversy that is now snowballing, viewers. We will explain why is it that a rattled Bangladesh has ordered the complete suspension of IPL streaming in the country. Next, 3 case studies from 3 different cities shed light on gross mismanagement by the authorities providing something as basic as clean drinking water. It started with Indore, it has spilled over to other cities. What is happening? We'll tell you. Then we take you to Chhattisgarh, where Maoists have struck in the Red Corridor region of Bijapur with an IED blast now being reported. Those details coming up on the show. And finally, a look at what's happening in Manipur, which is on edge to the latest face-off between Kuki and Meitei groups. Let's get started. And on to our first story of the day, viewers. The Supreme Court today refused to grant bail to terrorists Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam in a case registered under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, that is UAPA, related to the larger conspiracy behind the February 2020 Delhi riots, national capital. Though bail was granted to 5 other co-accused, the Supreme Court has made some very strong observations while denying bail to Umar Khalid and to Sharjeel Imam. Republic TV, your channel, has tracked this story since 2020. We'll get you everything that the court has said and some exclusive visuals that are coming up for you.
हम हिंदुस्तान और नॉर्थ ईस्ट को परमानेंटली कट कर सकते हैं।
The Supreme Court today pronounced a verdict on the bail plea of the Delhi riots accused, which claimed the lives of 53 people. While 5 among the 7 accused received bail, but the main perpetrators and conspirators of the Delhi riots were denied bail. Here's what the court said while denying bail to the Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. It's the biggest setback that the Tukde gang could have ever imagined. Hari Solanki, father of Raju Solanki, one of the 53 victims of the Delhi riots, had earlier demanded nothing less than a capital punishment for all the accused in the case. Listen it to what he had said before the verdict.
All right, viewers, we had to cut out of that because we are getting live pictures that are now coming in from New York. On your screens are the visuals of Venezuelan deposed President Nicolas Maduro, who is now set to make his first court appearance in New York after being charged with narco-terrorism. Well, there you can see the visuals of a police convoy that has been escorting the deposed president to the New York court. Heavy security over there. In fact, earlier, just a short while back, we got you the first pictures of the convoy that was headed from the Brooklyn jail, from where he was being held, to the courtroom. And just a short while from now, we're expected to get more developments on what is exactly set to happen inside the courtroom. A motorcade carrying ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was seen leaving the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. In fact, as we speak, these are the latest pictures that are coming in very close to the courtroom in Brooklyn in New York, where he is set to make his first appearance. Follows his capture by the US military in a strike on Saturday, now set to appear facing narco-terrorism charges. I'll hand it over to our chief consulting editor, Saurabh Shukla, who joins us on the phone line with more details about these latest developments, Saurabh, that are coming in from New York.
Thank you. As you know that Nicolas Maduro faces serious charges here in the U.S., this is the first court appearance that he has, and I want to tell our viewers that essentially what really happens, that this is the first step of a long-drawn process that's expected to take place here in the U.S. courts. As you know, that the U.S. judiciary is very, very, independent, and that's the reason why the prosecutors want to make sure that there is a watertight case against him, and that's the reason why, even when this raid happened, there were agents of Department of Justice, which is managing this case. They were embedded during this entire process as well when he was captured and brought here to the U.S. And he will be presented before a district judge here who will then, it will be a short hearing, who will then just decide in the first place whether he can be tried here in the U.S. and if proper procedures were followed when he was, obviously detained because he had a long pending he was on the U.S. most wanted list and also had a $50 million dollars bounty on his head, which had happened from the first Trump administration, was continued by President Biden, and now President Donald Trump made sure that it was executed and Nicolas Maduro was brought back to the U.S. to face justice. So that's essentially going to happen. It's a very high-value case, so to say. A lot of attention, media is already there in the U.S., covering this. That's the reason why the security has been built up. They don't want to take any chances, both in Manhattan, where he will appear, and also in other critical parts, including Washington, D.C. The security has been beefed up just in case there are any trouble which is created. So that's the situation as it exists. As I mentioned earlier, that this will be a short hearing, and this is essentially procedural hearing just to make sure that everything against him that has been done and that they follow the due course of law in following the protocol, the judicial protocol, because the courts here take this very, very seriously, and that's what is essentially going to happen when he's brought before a court today.
Right. Saurabh, I request you to stay on with us as we keep track of those live visuals that are now coming in from New York viewers over there, the convoy that is carrying the deposed president to the courtroom. Saurabh, if you can take our viewers through the legal options that now lie in front of the former president, and if at all there is any way out from the charges that he now faces in the United States.
I can tell you that obviously the more substantive details will come out, but sources I've been speaking to here in Washington, D.C. and even in Manhattan who are handling this case, they are saying that clearly this is not only a high-profile case, but the case which impacts the whole issue of narco-terrorism in the manner in which the Maduro regime was funneling drugs, his cocaine trade. They have the financial links. Also, there have been intercepts that they have. All that will be presented in the due course. Certainly, what will happen now is like a curtain raiser, if you may say, of this entire case. They want to make sure that they have a watertight case. That's the reason why the charges that he's facing are very serious. And certainly this judge will determine, it's a first step in a long-drawn judicial process. let me say it, Mr. Maduro obviously will get his lawyers to fight this case as well. And there will be arguments, counter-arguments, but certainly this case is such that the U.S. will make sure that it presents all the evidence so that this case faces scrutiny and stands the test of trial here in the U.S. So that's the whole situation, and I want to just again recap what really happened. So this is arraignment. It is actually, as it is referred to in the U.S., is the first step when you have to start a judicial trial where the judge will ensure it is going to be a proof hearing that this case is fit enough to be tried here in the U.S. courts, and the U.S. courts have a jurisdiction over this case. So it essentially is determining the jurisdiction of this case, and certainly that is the way the Department of Justice here in the U.S. has presented the charges. Obviously, you will get the details once there is a briefing post this, the appearance that Mr. Maduro has. But we do expect that the judge is going to grant the request of the Department of Justice to try this case here in the U.S. And then it will they will determine the next date, as it is done in any legal process, to proceed this trial. But this trial is going to take some time, and obviously Mr. Maduro will be in the custody in a high security prison here in the U.S. to face the trial.
Right. And Saurabh, speaking about the situation as it stands in Venezuela at the moment, we do understand the U.S. has said that America has essentially taken over, the country. And even though it is kind of hinted that it might not govern the country on a day-to-day basis, the situation as it stands right now does seem a little fluid, if I may use that word. How do you see that playing out?
Yeah. So, I want to give a whole perspective to our viewers what really happened. Venezuela was under sanctions, and obviously Mr. Maduro was a wanted man. It was pretty apparent in the manner in which, the U.S. President Donald Trump had made it very clear that sooner or later they will bring him to justice. So it was clearly a writing on the wall. What he was banking on was a tacit Chinese support. There was a Chinese delegation, if you would have seen the visuals, sent by President Xi, which was visiting the former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on the same night where the U.S. operation took place. So clearly, sources here in the security agencies are telling me that not only was he being brazen and making sure that he was taking on the U.S. authorities, he also was banking on the Chinese support there in Venezuela. And obviously, the bulk of the Venezuelan oil was going to China. And post, Maduro, regime, they had to make sure that Venezuela does not fall into the hands of the Chinese or the Russians. That's the reason why there was a need to stabilize it. And the current vice president, who is now acting president, has now taken over the reins of Venezuela. And obviously, the U.S. side is making sure that the Venezuelan, government is run properly, and it does not have a chaos, because obviously, not only does it have economic repercussions, the fact that Venezuela has the highest global oil reserves makes it also important for the economic stability for the world. So I think what is happening now is to make sure that there is a stable regime which is there, which governs Venezuela, and it does not get into the hands of a rival country, so to say. That was the whole idea behind which post this operation that the U.S. side is helping the current Venezuelan regime to make sure that there is a law and order which is kept. And obviously, the strategic oil reserve that Venezuela has is not diverted to, obviously countries like China and Russia, which will gain out of this, and especially when a chaotic situation happens.
Saurabh, you mentioned about governance in Venezuela, and that's exactly what I was coming to next. Prolonged effect of a trial in the US, as Trump has pointed out, that it is time for Maduro to face American system of justice. The effect on this is likely to have far-reaching consequences as far as the governance in Venezuela and the political landscape, the future of politics in Venezuela is concerned. At some point, do you see the Trump administration or the US authorities coming to the negotiating table as far as this entire situation is concerned?
See, that boat has already crossed now. Sources are telling me that Nicolas Maduro was also, was given some options. There are reports coming out, although they're not confirmed reports, but the fact remains that he did speak to President Trump. Obviously, he was adamant because the U.S. system, the administration here, did want him to face justice and surrender because of the charges that he was facing. He did not do so. And clearly, there is, if you see, on the contrary of what people were expecting, there is a groundswell of support in Venezuela and also people of Venezuelan origin. In fact, if you see, I've been talking to some people here as well in the U.S., and they're happy that Nicolas Maduro has been brought to justice because there are, besides the narco-terrorism factories that he was running, he was also doing a lot of excesses at the cost of the Venezuelan people. In fact, there are now reports which are coming out, and obviously more stories will come out, of the fact that he was leading a lavish life in Venezuela, and his cronies were leading a lavish life at the cost when the country was a bulk of the nation which had so much of oil reserves, so much of gold reserves, was under abject poverty. So certainly, many people believe that an alternative administration, which happens in Venezuela, and obviously now you have an acting president in place, will make sure that the people of Venezuela, and President Trump also said in so many words that once this whole oil exploration happens in Venezuela, it will also be benefiting the Venezuelan people as well, because obviously prosperity in that country was earlier being cornered by leaders like Nicolas Maduro and his partners in China and elsewhere. And now obviously bulk of this will also accrue to Venezuelan people. We obviously have to wait and watch what is going to happen. But for now, the situation is that at least you have a semblance of authority there, and there is Nicolas Maduro, who will face a proper judicial trial for the crimes that he's committed.
Right. Saurabh, I request you to continue to be with us as we keep a track of those live visuals that are coming in from New York viewers. In fact, as I speak in my conversation with Chief Consulting Editor, let us tell you that at this point, Maduro and his wife have entered the courtroom in New York for arraignment in what is their first appearance at the court since being captured over the weekend. Saurabh, I'd like to come back to you on that note. Let's speak about the potential role, if at all any, that the United Nations might play out in this entire situation, because one of the first responses that came in from the Venezuelan government post Maduro's capture was them urging the United Nations to intervene and convene an emergency Security Council meeting.
I'm glad you mentioned that because, today the UN Security Council is supposed to have a emergency meeting. That's what I was told. Obviously, China and Russia, who are permanent members, they're going to obviously take this up because they were benefiting. They were strategic beneficiaries of Maduro's oil largest, because in order to circumvent the sanctions that the U.S. had, he was trying to sell the oil to China largely. And obviously, they have been impacted deeply by this. Do you know that on the same night when Nicolas Maduro was captured, one of the highest high-profile visitors to him was the Chinese delegation, which was actually led by a special envoy of the Chinese President Xi. So clearly they were negotiating some oil contracts and other things as well. And certainly China is very unhappy. They've issued a very strong statement as well, and they will try to raise this in the UN Security Council. But as you know, that the US has a veto power there, so it's unlikely that UN will get involved other than some lip service. And I also want to say that we are sitting in 2026, where you've seen in the past as well that UN's role has largely been advisory. It has not been as effective as the world expected it to be, and obviously, nations largely, whether it was when it comes to India defending its own national interest during Operation Sindoor or any other country doing it, they make sure that they do it on their own terms, because obviously by the time the UN reacts, it's a long-drawn process, and that's the reason why a lot of conflicts are getting solved, and situations like these are getting solved out of the UN system.
Right. All right, Saurabh, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your perspective on this story that we're tracking very, very closely. Viewers, we have to slip into a very short break, but do stay on with us. 6:30 p.m. Colleague Abhishek Kapoor getting you more details on what is the next course of action for the deposed president. Stay with us.
आधे बाउल दही में 4 चम्मच MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला डाला, स्टर करो, पुदीना चटनी तैयार। MDH चटनी पुदीना मसाला।
QSMTHE, the world's foremost university rankings organizations, have ranked Amity amongst the top 3% universities globally, making it among the very few Indian universities to be included in both rankings. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ 8 मिनट में तैयार। क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल बोलो जुबान केसरी।
ये है सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिप जल जीरा मसाला। सिप सिप जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप MDH का जल जीरा सिप।
प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरीडे।
5, 4, 3 S200 motors. Plus 20 seconds. Lift off normal. L40 stages are ignited. Plus 5 seconds. Plus 20 seconds. First stage performance normal. L40 stages thrust cut off. Plus 5 seconds.
दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर, माँ की मुस्कुराहट और खाने की सुगंध। MDH गरम मसाला,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
मेरी चिमनी टूट जाएगी। What are you doing?
रानी, इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं।
ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील TMT से बना।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील TMT बार एकदम सॉलिड।
आर प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ 8 मिनट में तैयार। क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी। अब छोलिया हो या लोबिया, सफेद चने या काले चने,
सब कुछ मजेदार बने। These are not media trials. These are strong campaign-based issues. Journalism which has brought the truth out. The only thing that sustains is public interest. Public interest is national interest. What happens when AI comes in a big way? How many jobs does it create? And how many jobs does it take away?
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद यही तो है इसकी खास बात।
वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है?
अरे मेरे राजा।
When we look out at the world, Samir, we look for partners. We don't look for preachers. Engaging America has become more complicated. You all know why. Huh? Having a neighbor that is an epicenter of global terrorism.
प्योर सूजी पास्ता उबालो मिलाओ और खाओ 8 मिनट में तैयार। क्या टेस्ट है सबका राजा आर प्योर मसाला।
QS&THE, the world's foremost university rankings organizations, have ranked Amity amongst the top 3% universities globally, making it among the very few Indian universities to be included in both rankings. Yet another top ranking for Amity University.
दादी के हाथों का जादू और खुशबू से महकता घर, माँ की मुस्कुराहट और खाने की सुगंध। MDH गरम मसाला,
क्योंकि हर रिश्ता है स्वाद से जुड़ा।
केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
आर प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरी डे।
अब छोलिया हो या लोबिया, सफेद चने या काले चने,
सब कुछ मजेदार बने।
5, 4, 3. S200 motors. Plus 20 seconds. Lift off normal.
L40 stages are ignited.
Plus 5 seconds. Plus 20 seconds.
First stage performance normal. L40 stages thrust cut off.
plus 5 seconds.
Auto tracking. PP driver tracking.
PSLV 661 car.
Attacked, one suspect arrested. Deposed Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife appeared in a New York court on narco-terrorism charges. Tukre gang key conspirators will continue to stay in jail. Supreme Court rejects bail for Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid. The top court makes strong observations, rules that Imam and Khalid are on a different footing than other accused. The government's courtroom warrior, a lawyer who led the case in the Delhi High Court and the Supreme Court, S.V. Raju, speaks to Republic. The former ASG speaks about how Tukre gang orchestrated the Delhi riot, says gang wanted regime change. The victim families question bail to 5 other accused, demand Umar Khalid and Sharjeel should be hanged. All right, friends, so let's cut straight to pictures coming in from New York, where a motorcade carrying ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has just arrived at the left the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn a while back and has arrived at the South District New York Court. And that's where the proceedings are going to go on. And this follows his capture, of course, 2 days back by US military in a raid which was called Operation Absolute Resolve. And he's facing drug charges, weapon charges and whatnot. A sitting president of a sovereign nation captured by the United States in a raid, essentially because the United States believes that Western Hemisphere is its sphere of influence and things should happen or not happen depending on what the United States wants. And Maduro, of course, was not playing ball. Let's cut to these pictures. These are pictures from the South District of New York in Manhattan, and the court is there where where the Venezuelan former US president faces charges of narco-terrorism and weapons conspiracy, among others. Purnima Nath joins us live from United States on this. Analyst who joins us on India-United States debates, this time on what's happening in the US. Very good evening from here, Ms. Nath. Very good morning there. Must be very early morning. We have seen some muted opposition voices on Maduro capture from the United States. But overall, you think, as we see it from outside, that this has given a fillip to the mega constituency of President Trump?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Namaste, Jai Hind. First of all, I think what President Trump did in this particular case has set a dangerous precedent for the other world leaders as well. But there are a few messages over here. First of all, one is if you don't have nuclear power, you're probably not going to be respected by America. Secondly, America is literally continuing the colonial propaganda and imperialism and imposing what America wants in the global stage. Today it's Latin America, but I think it's not just Latin America, it's literally the entire world. So this is going to scare most of the world leader who has a little ounce of dignity, that this is their sovereign land, this is their political agenda, whatever their agenda is. It is a hypocrisy that we're witnessing today, that America decides who lives or who dies, who stays in the power, who gets ousted. And we have seen this again and again and again. This didn't start today. Obviously, we're seeing it in a very overt manner. But if one of the first coups by America is 1893, the reason Hawaii is part of America is because America actually executed a coup against Queen Liliuokalani. She was ousted, and America now has Hawaii. Similarly, fast forward 1903, we have seen in Panama. 1953, we have seen Operation Ajax in Iran. 1954, we have seen in Guatemala. 1961, Cuba. 1964, Brazil. 1973, Chile. So this is happening again and again and again, constantly because of what America wants. 100 years ago, when Teddy Roosevelt literally said, America, it's time for America to determine or actually civilize the world. This was the same language that colonial powers used. The colonial powers also came to India and decided they had to civilize Hindu people of India. So this is no different. And today it seems like it's South America, but it is not. It is the entire world. And this is a dangerous situation for any country, any civilization like India as well, who is actually peace-oriented. You guys have to speak up, and it's not going to stop.
It's interesting. I mean, my question was about the fillip that Trump gets from within the mega constituency, Ms. Nath. And you are suggesting that the world is uncomfortable at this development. Frankly speaking, does President Trump really care about what the world thinks so long as he gets to, control the narrative as it seems? And that seems to be happening.
Absolutely, every single day. I have not seen one day pass by without a headline, which hasn't had a Trump name. He wants to stay in the news cycle. He controls the news cycle. Literally, there are news portal in America who's actually claiming, and also rightfully so, that Trump dominated the global news cycle. Unfortunately, whether it's looking like a chaotic situation for different countries, whether it's through economic warfare or not, whether it's tariff or not, this is continuing from a military flexing. It is continuing from an imposition of what America wants. They can literally decide which, like for instance, one Orlando Hernandez, the former Honduran president who was actually convicted for smuggling in 400 tons of drugs, were pardoned by President Trump. So the hypocrisy is glaring here. You are saying you actually targeted Venezuela for narco-terrorism, but you actually, on the other hand, pardoned and freed the person who was actually convicted in America. So America decides who lives and who dies. America is the judge, America is the jury, America is the executioner. What law are they actually following? Is it international law? If there's any leader, they decide that leader has to go, he will be ousted, he will be thrown out, he will be replaced. So is it fair for anybody else? So MAGA constituents of President Trump thinks this is the good thing for America. And one phrase you will hear particularly from Republican parties, peace through strength. They want to flex their muscles. They want to show that America is supreme. And they want to show that by doing what they're doing today makes sense for them. And this is exactly what is making sure that America has the power in the global landscape.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you say this while being there in the United States, Ms. Nath. Can we take this as some kind of indication that howsoever muted, there are voices of opposition and dissent within the U.S. establishment? I'm not talking about the Democrats, but within the Republicans, there might be some who are really uncomfortable at the swing of events over the last 48 hours?
It's not from now. I think we have seen this kind of uncomfort zone for quite some time now. Even in the Epstein file, if you remember, just a few weeks ago, we have seen Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and a staunch supporter and campaigner of President Trump and Republican Party and promoter of conservatism and basically anti-war agenda that he promised us. And today, within a year of first year, he literally bombed 8 countries. This is not settling well for some of his supporters, including myself. And there is dissent, but those dissents are coming with repercussion as well. She had to resign. The agenda, the attack on her, and similarly attack on me as well. They're telling me I'm not Republican. Basically, if you don't support President Trump or his agenda, whatever he's doing, you're not Republican. Or you are actually not, the worst is you are not American enough. They're telling me to go back, but they're not telling Marjorie Taylor Greene to go back. Where she should go back. So she's not American either. So I'm getting an extra layer of target. People like me are getting extra layer of target because of our ethnicity, our religion, that we haven't converted to Christianity. So you have to understand that the narrative has gone down to that level that any kind of dissent towards President Trump is viewed as anti-American stance. And this is a dangerous precedent. This is a dangerous scenario we are actually experiencing. I'm speaking honestly here, but I'm also getting the heat. I'm also feeling the heat.
I much appreciate that, Purnima Nath. I remember, in fact, just a year back, the enthusiastic conversations we would have with the Indian diaspora, including you from the United States, about the potential that the second Trump presidency held. But it seems like a very different picture and scenario emerging, and in a way you endorsing it. Thank you so much for joining us with that perspective. We are continuing with this story. Venezuelan President Maduro captured by the US forces in that dramatic operation called Absolute Resolve, now faces serious charges in the United States. But on the ground, back in Caracas and other parts of Venezuela, there is an eerie calm. There are some protests, but then very muted. What's with the government of President Delcy now? Take a look.
An operation that stunned the world. The United States captured the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro, dramatically altering the balance of power in Latin America. US forces stormed key locations, including Maduro's Caracas safe house, took him and his wife into custody, and flew them out to New York. Washington called it a law enforcement action. Critics call it a full-blown act of aggression. But back in Venezuela, panic grips the streets. Power cuts, shutter markets, and anxious crowds.
The situation here, it's like a holiday, a holiday or vacation day, because the people, we don't have we don't have too much movement in the vehicles. This highway unit to 2 principal cities here in Zulia State, Maracaibo and San Francisco City.
As uncertainty simmers in Venezuela, interim President Delcy Rodriguez has taken the place of her ally President Nicolas Maduro. Maduro now faces serious charges in the US, including drug trafficking and narco-terror links. Maduro today will appear in New York City courtroom. As Maduro prepares to face US courts, Venezuela stays into uncertainty.
Today's, remember the government of US, Donald Trump and Marco Rubio, he announced Venezuela was the government of US take the administration of the country of Venezuela. That make so many reactions in all the world. of course, in Venezuela, we have reactions. So many people and with sympathy with the government of Maduro make activities and meetings in some areas of Caracas.
A president captured, a nation destabilized.
Strong message by the Supreme Court of India. If you have committed a crime and that too one as serious as terrorism,
the accused in the case, listen it to what he had said before the verdict.
सर, हम तो ये अनुरोध करना चाहेंगे माननीय सुप्रीम कोर्ट से कि हम लोगों के जवान बेटे इन लोगों ने दंगे में ख़त्म कर दिए। अगर इन लोगों को जमानत दी जाती है तो हम सभी पीड़ितों को फांसी देने का काम सुप्रीम कोर्ट द्वारा किया जा रहा है। अनुरोध करना चाहेंगे इनको किसी भी हालत में बेल नहीं देना चाहिए। इनको कम से कम सज़ा दी जाए तो फांसी से कम इनकी सज़ा नहीं होनी चाहिए।
Though happy that Sharjeel and Umar Khalid didn't receive bail, here's how he reacted after the verdict.
सरकार से और सुप्रीम कोर्ट से हम यही अपील करना चाहेंगे कि इनको बेल किसी भी हालत में न दें। अगर इनको बेल दी जाती है तो हम सभी को फांसी दी जा रही है।
Here's how the families of other victims responded.
उसको होगा जिसके परिवार से कोई चला जाए तो ऐसे उन हत्यारों को जमानत मिल जाएगी तो कोई भी खुश नहीं होगा। उसमें दंगे में 50-60 लोगों की जान गई थी तो उनको तो कम से कम उम्र कैद ना हो तो उम्र कैद तो हो, लेकिन उम्र कैद होगी तो कोई ना कोई ऐसे ही बेल करने की, जैसे कि बोलता है कोई कहता है कि तो बेल वगैरह ना होकर के सीधी फांसी हो तो ज़्यादा बेटर है।
All right, this Tukre gang story is the top trend across the country tonight, and we are not leaving it. Taking a short break and continuing with more on the Tukre gang staying in jail.
5, 4, 3. S200 motors.
ये है सीक्रेट रेसिपी MDH का जीरा सिर्फ जल जीरा मसाला।
मेरी चिमनी टूट जाएगी। What are you doing?
रानी, इस घर में कुछ है जो टूटता नहीं।
ये पिलर कभी नहीं टूटेगा। रुंगटा स्टील TMT से बना।
रुंगटा नहीं तो घर स्ट्रॉन्ग नहीं। रुंगटा स्टील TMT बार एकदम सॉलिड।
थोड़े में ज्यादा स्वाद, यही तो है इसकी खास बात।
वाओ मामा, क्या स्वाद है।
अरे मेरे राजा,
मसाला केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ रे, दिल झूमे देखो मतवारा हुआ रे। केसरिया से मन जोगी हुआ।
हर पल मनाओ केसरी त्योहार। विमल, बोलो जुबान केसरी।
MDH की देगी मिर्च,
देगी मिर्च का तड़का, अंग अंग फड़का।
MDH की देगी मिर्च।
आर प्योर शाही पनीर मसाला, डिलीशियस, हेल्दी एवरीडे।
When we look out at the world, Samir, we look for partners. We don't look for preachers. Engaging America has become more complicated. You all know why.
Having a neighbor that is an epicenter of global terrorism.
India in 2025 saw many international diplomatic moments of India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who literally turned international politics and the diplomacy that comes with it into an art of savage roasts. From jeering comments on Pakistan to calling out Trump and Western hypocrisy, here are the top roast moments of the year 2025, where Jaishankar served cold but harsh truths month by month.
All big countries are unique to an extent, but we would certainly hope, to the extent we think of democracy as a universal aspiration, ideally a reality, but at least an aspiration. It is in large part because India chose a democratic model after independence. And it chose a democratic model because we had fundamentally a consultative, pluralistic society. Now, there was a time, and I have to say this in all honesty, where West treated democracy as a Western characteristic and was busy encouraging non-democratic forces in the global South. It still does. In many cases, I can point to some very recent ones, where actually everything that you say you value at home, you don't practice abroad. So I do think the rest of the global South will view, the successes and the shortcomings and the responses of other countries. They will also ask themselves which ones of them they relate to, I would argue that in many ways, India, because it's historically been an open society, one very much linked with the world, many countries of the global South are more likely to say the Indian experience is more transposable to their societies than perhaps those of others. So I do think in our progress as a democracy, the fact that for all the challenges that we've had, even at a low income, we have stayed true to the democratic model, which is almost, if you look at our part of the world, we're pretty much the only country that has done that. So I think it's something the West should look at, because if you do want democracy eventually to prevail, it's important the West also embraces successful models outside the West. Well, look, when we look out at the world, Samir, we look for partners. We don't look for preachers. Particularly preachers who don't practice at home what they preach abroad. And I think some of Europe is still struggling with that problem. Some of it is changing. So, the issue for us, in many ways, Europe, I think, has entered a certain zone of reality check. Now, whether they are able to step up to it or not, it's something we will have to see. But from our point of view, if we are to develop a partnership, there has to be some understanding, there has to be some sensitivity, there has to be a mutuality of interest, and there has to be a realization of how the world works. And I think these are all work in progress to differing degrees with different parts of Europe. So some have moved further, some a little bit less. Well, look, let me say a few things here. One, we actually got a lot of international support. Many ministers, many leaders called up PM, many ministers called me up. We had a Security Council resolution which very clearly said that the perpetrators of the attack should be held accountable. And on May 7th morning, we held them accountable through the action which was taken through Operation Sindoor. Now, having said that, I know, what you have spoken to me earlier, that many issues have been raised. I honestly don't see the, to me, things are fairly clear. So let me take this opportunity to spell out our position. One, where Pakistan is concerned, our relations, our dealings with them will be bilateral and strictly bilateral. That is a national consensus for many years, and there is absolutely no change in that consensus that dealings with Pakistan will be bilateral.
Yes, I mean, you could also flip it the other way around. Which BRICS country would a G7 be sitting with and talking about? And I agree with you. I think, in a way, what's different in our relationship, India and France, is we've always been guided, by a certain, I would say, sense of independence or ability and willingness to strategize for ourselves. And this has been a primary hallmark of both our foreign policies. And what it does in this world, and we had a little bit of a discussion about this yesterday, in this world, I think those who come to terms with, this sort of volatility, uncertainty, what Mr. Sadeh spoke about, you will get the possibilities if you are realist about analyzing the landscape, If, on the other hand, you wring your hands and say everything is different, oh my God, what's happening? You're not going to have the mental strength really to see the opportunities. So we are in the midst of, frankly, I think many important relationships in the world are going to get refashioned in the coming months and years. And certainly those like us, which have a very strong, sound footing, will actually be able to build on it. Now, if, just take a look at this. We were discussing connectivity. And yet we are taking steps practically on shipping, which is a very crucial element of connectivity, to give shape to that connectivity cooperation. A major trade balance has accompanied the growth. It has increased from 6.6 billion to 58.9 billion, which is about 9 times. So we need to address that urgently. Today, as we meet, allow me to lay out some of the salient features of the agenda before us. Addressing tariff and non-tariff trade barriers, removing bottlenecks in logistics, promoting connectivity through the international North-South transport corridor. While asserting our rights, we must also firmly face up to threats. Countering terrorism is a particular priority because it synthesizes bigotry, violence, intolerance, and fear. India has confronted this challenge since independence, having a neighbor that is an epicenter of global terrorism.
Engaging America has become more complicated. You all know why. Managing China has become complicated. Reassuring Russia became complicated because, it's Ukraine war, the pressure on us to move away from Russia. Then I had, bringing Japan into play.
From Asia's largest news headquarters, setting the agenda for Bharat. You're watching Republic.
Hello and welcome. You're watching the Monday edition of This is Exclusive with me, Vincent. Ladies and gentlemen, a big jolt to the Tukre gang. If you wonder why exactly have we been calling them Tukre gang, it's only because of the fact that their intention all this while has been to break the country. In fact, what I'm holding right now is a 32-page conspiracy file. The conspiracy that was basically hatched by these two people, Omar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. The details of what they were basically planning and how they were planning will come out tonight on This is Exclusive, which will actually tell you why the Supreme Court felt the need to keep them behind bars and let off the others, at least on bail. Tonight on This Is Exclusive, we're going to go into granular detailing of the role that has been played by these two people, and more importantly, how 2019 was the precursor to what we witnessed in 2020 February when US President Donald Trump was in the national capital. All this and much more on this edition of This Is Exclusive, but first let me take you through the headlines we're tracking at this hour. 34-page explosive document sheds light on terrorist Omar and Sharjeel masterminding the 2020 Delhi riots conspiracy. Supreme Court rejects the bail plea of Tukre icons in riots case, uproar over bail of 5 other accused. US Vice President JD Vance's residence in Ohio attacked, 1 suspect arrested. Captured Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife appear in New York court on narco-terrorism charges. The Supreme Court has denied bail to Omar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, who were accused for offences under the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act in connection with the 2020 Delhi riots larger conspiracy case. Now, the court ruled that material on record discloses a prima facie case against Omar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. The court, in fact, said that the delay in the trial can serve as a trigger for the judicial scrutiny, even in cases involving offences under the UAPA, like the present one. In fact, Republic has tracked this closely since 2020, and today with the Supreme Court's ruling, we present an explosive document. A 34-page report that essentially corroborates the court's observation that what Omar and Sharjeel planned does in fact amount to acts of terror. In fact, I'm going to take you through each of the details and how the planning actually all started. 2019, what we basically saw. 2019 was basically a replica. And in 2020, when the riots actually broke out, it was nothing but a replica of 2019 itself. And the planning actually began since then. In fact, what we are given to understand from the documents that have been accessed, the sequence of events of the conspiracy of the Northeast Delhi riots. And what's very clear, the aim was very simple. The aim was to target the state. Allegations of incitement was not raised by the state for the first time. Rather, it was raised in closed doors of conspirators themselves, that is the DPSG group. Now, it is this particular group in which most of these accused were present. The very own trusted persons of conspirators have charged them with conspiracy. The state has basically come in much later. Now, it seems that within the DPSG group, in which Omar Khalid, Sharjeel Imam and others were basically present, there was a fight that had already taken place. Some who had spoken about the fact that there was a deliberate attempt that was made to incite violence, and some said that you need to de-escalate. Now, these are words that have basically come in. Look at what was essentially being spoken about in these chats, in these various posts that were basically put in. Tera mera rishta kya hai, la ilaha, was one such, where they're essentially saying that it is basically against nationalism, it is against democracy, it is against secularism. Then if you take a look at further details that we have essentially got, the top conspirators, the conspirators who were along with Omar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, there were other groups. In fact, it turns out that they had something called the JCC in their entire ecosystem, and the riots in February 2020 was basically executed by carefully identifying and selecting the protest sites in Muslim majority areas close to mosques, mazars, they're close to main roads, so as to escalate protests to Chakka Jam. Once critical mass is generated and at appropriate time, and eventually lead it to violence against police and then others. It was ensured that secular names, Hindu names were given to protest sites to give a secular color. Now let's now break down the entire anatomy of this plan. Now this document basically mentions that the riots were basically preceded in December 2019 at a much lower scale, but the pattern was quite identical, having the same lead characters and also the similar modus operandi. And the riots were basically executed by carefully identifying and selecting protest sites in Muslim-majority areas that were close to mosques and also close to main roads, so as to basically escalate the chakka jams. And once critical mass is gathered, they basically would be leading to violence against the police and others also. I'm going to take you through what was the modus operandi. It is what we are calling the anatomy of the riots. First was about spreading of information, how exactly misinformation was being provided to others through WhatsApp, multiple WhatsApp groups that were essentially created, DPSG being one such. And in fact, back in 2019 itself, in Jamia, there was a group that was created by Sharjil Imam. And the messages that they were basically passing on, I'm going to take you through all of that in a short while from that. There were what they called 27 protest sites. Now, this was a mini protest site that was basically created, and they wanted this to go on for 24/7. In fact, they escalated this at a much later by bringing in the aspect of chakka jams, of ensuring that highways, roads were basically blocked so that people were inconvenienced and their message would have been set across. So they were moving from protest site to designated location on main roads, highways, and blockade. Now, this was particularly extremely important to their entire system, how exactly they were operating, so that the moment the roads and highways are basically blocked, it would have garnered more attention, creating confrontational situation. So the easiest way, according to this particular document that we have accessed, their plan was to ensure that they would target the courts, they would target the police, and there were multiple sequences that were basically created by them by which they would have come face-to-face blows with the police. Now, let me take you through what were they planning to do. They were attacking the police as well as the paramilitary. That was part of their entire plan. Let's move on. Now, if you take a look at it, their idea was spread communal violence, attack the non-Muslims. So in some of the areas that you see with the names that they had essentially given, their aim to attack non-Muslims, damage public and private properties. And what were they doing? How were they doing it? They were using petrol bombs, firearms, deadly weapons, acid bombs, stones, lathis, chili powder. So look at the manner in which all of this was planned. And does it really look to you that these were basically perhaps spontaneous in nature? No, it wasn't spontaneous. It was a protest that was completely orchestrated. Now I'm going to take you through the areas where these protests were actually taking place, and more importantly, how it is linked to 2019. So it's not about just 2020, but it is also 2020. Now, one thing is abundantly clear, and that is the peaceful protest narrative that was essentially given was just an alibi. The actual plan was to basically target India, to incite mass violence and also break the very fabric of democracy. Now, what we are going to show you, we'll show you the two maps of the national capital. In fact, this is where the first phase of the riots that took place. So we've been able to put together, just look at the arc of this. It all started with 16th of December 2019 in Chandbagh Mazar area. Chandbagh Mazar area was the first, it was reported on 16th of December. Then in Bridgepuri Tea Point, that was on 17th of November 2019. So all of this comes in one particular area itself. If you take a look at it, they're all part of the same area. Let's move to the other part. 66-footer road, this is again on 17th of December 2019. That's another place where the riots had broken out. Let's take you through the other details of it. In front of Jafrabad police station, 17th of December, this is again yet another place where there was a confrontation that has taken place. That is point number 4. Point number 5, take a look at it. This is in December 20th from Shamshan Ghat to the Jaishankar Old Simapuri. Now that's point number 5 here. Point 6, take a look at it. Let's move to the point 6. Again, this is all within one particular area as you see. This is the first phase of the riots pattern. In one particular area, in a couple of days you have seen how it was attacked. Again, the second phase of the planning, it's again from 1 to 4 belongs in this arc. 5 to 8 that we want to take you right now again falls in a wider range itself. The same very area. Jafrabad, Seelampuri Fruit Market, Jafrabad Metro Station, Jyoti Nagar, these are all part of the same arc that you see. Shastri Park, Sundar Nagar, the other places. So a total of 10 locations that we've been able to map here. As you can see, take a look at it, closer look, you'll understand that how this was concentrated in one particular area so that they had the maximum damage that could be inflicted upon. I'm also going to get you two very special guests in a short while from now. I'm going to tell you how the riot victims, how they have faced perhaps injustice for a very long time. The fact that these were the same very people who went on calling for democracy, that democracy is in threat. The reality is this, that the two people who actually faced the worst. Ram Paswan, he's again Nitin's father. Shiv Kumar Raghav, he's again a victim. Ram Paswan ji और शिव कुमार जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. सबसे पहले आप दोनों से एक सवाल करना चाहूँगा, वो ये है कि उमर खालिद और शर्जील इमाम की अगर बात करें, दोनों के ऊपर जो आरोप लगे हैं वो आरोप एक तरह से देखा जाए तो जानबूझकर जो भी उन्होंने किया 2019 और 2020 में, ये जानबूझकर उन्होंने किया था. पर अब तक जो दलील दिया गया था कोर्ट में वो ये था कि हम लोग पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं, हम देश को बचाने के लिए पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट कर रहे हैं. आप लोगों से जानना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि जिस तरह से आप लोगों ने अपने लोगों को खोया है, आप लोग से जानना चाहूंगा, जो लोग आपकी बात सुन रहे हैं उनको भी आप बताइए कि आखिरकार जो लोग ये दलील देते हैं कि डेमोक्रेसी को बचाने के, गणतंत्र को बचाने के लिए ही वो ये काम कर रहे थे, क्या वो सही है?
जी, ये जो प्रोटेस्ट जो हुआ था यहीं से स्टार्ट हुआ था गलती, लेकिन उसके अंदर जो हमारे लोगों की जान गई, वे जिससे कि कोई लेना देना नहीं था हम लोगों का, उसके अंदर जो स्टार्ट हुआ
जी,
ये इतना गलत हुआ कि लोगों ने उसका साथ देने की बजाय उसका गलत इस्तेमाल कर दिया. वो गलत इस्तेमाल होने पे ही लोगों की जानें भी गई, लोगों की दुकानें भी, मार्केट जला दी गई. इस चीज को मद्देनजर रखते हुए ही ये सारे काम बहुत ही गलत हुए. इसके अंदर प्रशासन ने भी बहुत लापरवाही.
Shiv Kumar ji, we'll try and reconnect with Shiv Kumar in a while from now. Ram Paswan is also joined. Ram Paswan जी, आपसे भी ये सवाल करना चाहूँगा जो मैंने शिव कुमार जी से किया, क्योंकि आपने अपने लोगों को खोया है और उस दिन, जिस दिन ये हादसा हुआ, जिस तरह से ये दंगे हुए दिल्ली में, उसमें कई लोगों को जान गए. उसके बावजूद ये जो लोग हैं, शर्जील इमाम और उमर खालिद, इनके पीछे जिस तरह से विदेशी दल उनको बैकिंग दे रही है, आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे? सबसे पहले तो ये बताइए कि उस दिन आपके जान पहचान के कौन लोग थे और क्या हुआ था?
सर, मैं राम सुगारत पासवान बोल रहा हूँ सर.
जी
जी सर,
बोलिए. राम पासवान जी, मैं ये पूछ रहा हूँ आपसे, उस दिन हुआ क्या? दंगे के दिन में नितिन के साथ हुआ क्या था?
सर, दंगे के दिन में मेरे यहाँ जो है गोखलपुरी में 2 दिन पहले दंगे हुआ था सर, 24-25 तारीख को, फरवरी को.
जी
जी सर. सुन
राम पासवान जी, आप बोलिए, आप पूरे विस्तार से बताइए कि हुआ क्या था.
ऐसा हुआ सर, हमारे यहाँ है गोखलपुरी, रहता हूँ दिल्ली गोखलपुरी में, तो यहाँ पे जो है 24 तारीख और 25 तारीख